As part of IBM's Smarter Cities leadership team, I travel around the globe, really meeting with mayors and governors and provincial leaders, essentially helping them do more with less. And I'm sure you've seen many of these Smarter Cities ads in airports or during halftime of football games or the US Open, but it's all about helping governments do more with less. And as I sit down with these leaders, invariably the discussion turns towards energy efficiency. And there are two truisms that have repeated themselves throughout the world. The first is the good news is that energy efficiency today is seen as a direct link to becoming more cost-effective and financially effective. So it has moved out of the realm of being environmentally the right thing to do into the realm of being financially what must be done. So that's the first truism. However, the second truism is that none of these municipalities, none of these governments have the capital required to make these investments. And I think John said earlier, policy changes aside, public-private partnerships aside, these governments do not see their way into doing these necessary projects. And I hear time and time again that solar energy is great, and we'd love to switch out our fleet for HEVs, and we'd love to set up a geothermal farm, but they just don't have the necessary capital. So most of my conversations end up taking a direction of how can you get to energy efficiency via a stepped progression. So it'd be great if you could switch out your diesel fleet for HEVs. It'd be great if you could implement solar panels and geothermal farms and what you hear of plasma technology. But that's something to plan for. But what can you do today? And the good news is that, and this may sound self-serving, but the good news is that there is a lot of technology, a lot of relatively inexpensive technology that can help governments in that stepped transition, that stepped progression towards energy efficiency. And I just want to give you a few quick examples. So right now, there are around the world, there are millions and probably billions, I'm erring on the side of being conservative, of resource/environmental meters and sensors that have been installed. There are probably 2 in this room. Okay? And this installed base is largely sub-optimized with regards to leveraging all of the data that they can collect. There are very few people that would argue with that, even people that own them. Maybe this building is an exception. Okay? But these billions of meters and sensors and recording devices are largely sub-optimized relative to the data that they can collect. Okay? Second point, the field of systems dynamics, and those of you who are systems engineers or literally rocket scientists will understand this, but the field of systems dynamics has new models that identify causal relationships across city services that have been otherwise unapparent or inaccessible. For example, the city of Portland has developed a systems dynamics-based model that unequivocally ties bike lanes, bus fares, and obesity. Anecdotally, people would say, yeah, the more bike lanes we have, the fewer obese people we have. Okay, but Portland now has unequivocal proof, and those will drive their future decisions on should we build more bike lanes, should we raise fares. The third thing, the declining cost of radio sensors, some of you know them as RFID chips, allow enterprises to tag everything and gain an unprecedented view of how things really move around a building or a campus. Not only does this have significant positive implications for security, logistics, and transportation, but it has significant environmental implications. And then lastly, more sophisticated analytical and visualization tools, coupled with the declining cost of these radio sensors, allow for much improved decision support and greater options when it comes to reducing energy consumption. So fleets can be maintained on an on-demand basis. Your fleet can be maintained when it tells you it needs to be maintained. It can tell you when it needs to have its oil changed, as opposed to adhering to a manufacturer's recommended schedule, which could save millions of dollars in energy consumption and oil consumption. Routes can be better optimized. They're allowing for improved sharing of vehicles. We even have a couple of cities who are thinking about creating on-demand public transportation. So it doesn't dispatch a vehicle until people are actually there at the stop waiting. Okay? And those routes are dynamic. They're not fixed based on who's out there. Now, policy aside, the technology exists today to do that.